I think it's page 201, right? 201.
It's really good. Try that song on this song.
Don't leave me alone, oh my faithful shepherd, guide me, dear master, and be unto me a helper. I am alone without you, nothing at all. I am alone without you, nothing at all. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your way forever. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your way forever. And don't leave me alone in the midst of this darkness. Let your bright face guide me, O Lord, unto peace. I am alone without you, nothing at all. I am alone without you, nothing at all. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your way forever. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your way forever. Don't leave me alone, but hear my prayer and be there for me, dear Lord, for the rest of my life. I am alone without you, nothing at all. I am alone without you, nothing at all. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your way forever. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your way forever. And don't leave me alone because of my sins, but forgive me, O Lord, and accept my repentance. I am alone without you, nothing at all. I am alone without you, nothing at all. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your ways forever. So take my right hand, O Lord, and guide me in your ways forever. Don't leave me alone in this dark, empty world.
So, I won't take long. I'll just remind us again, we started a new book last week. You guys remind me because I stuffed up last time. I remember the wrong book in the wrong order and the wrong number. Alright? So which book have we just started?
Peter.
Peter. How many epistles did Peter write?
3.
3. Tell us. 2? 2? Not 3? 2. 2. So 2 epistles. We're up to chapter. I think Bishoy took us to chapter 2 in the first few verses in chapter 2. I'm sure Mary and I'll hand over. We have we're very lucky to have Mary giving us the Bible study, so I'll just hand over to Mary. So the camera's not on.
So, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. So, as Kira kindly introduced us to today's Bible study, we're up to 1 Peter chapter 2, and God willing, today we will complete chapter 2 and do a little bit of chapter 3 just to keep the momentum. So, we'll see how we go. Can anyone just sort of remind us, so Bish talked to us about 2 things last week, Christian identity and dignity. Okay, I won't go into too much detail of that, but can anyone just sort of give me examples of what St. Peter said our identity was? Like, what should we be doing as Christians? So if you look at chapter 1, just skim through it. He said, be what? Come on, kids. You can say it out loud. Holy. Holy, okay, yeah. So he said, be holy for I am, like Christ said, for I am holy. Be holy for I am holy. Okay, anything else that as Christians we should be doing that really highlights our Christian identity?
Something about faith.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can elaborate.
Yeah, so he talked about faith being the core of our identity. So he said, genuineness of your faith being much more precious than gold that perishes though it is tested by fire. And though now you do not see him, yet believing you rejoice with joy inexpressible, full of glory, receiving the end of your faith. So that faith is really, really important in our identity. So he said, be holy, be faithful. Anything else? Usually, you know. Yes, heart. So love one another fervently with a pure heart. Yeah, so that was another really important point. And then we went on to chapter 2, and St. Peter describes the Christians as a what? So if you go to chapter 2, he uses a really strong word. Can anyone read verse 9? But you're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people. It's really strong words there, right? So chosen, royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people. And these sorts of words, God used to use to describe a certain group of people in the Old Testament. Who were they? We always hear about them. Chosen, holy nation. They're the chosen people. Who are they? Jews, yeah. So it's interesting that he's using the same sort of description, but now he's talking about who? The Gentiles, right? So, for the Gentiles, Jews was like a monopoly for them. They were always a chosen people, and then all of a sudden, here's St. Peter telling the Gentiles, "You're a chosen people." So it actually meant so much more to the Gentiles to hear that, because they never ever had heard that. All their lives they've been hearing, Jews are the chosen people. And now all of a sudden St. Peter is coming and telling them that they are a chosen people because they believe in Christ, because they're Christian, because they have this Christian identity. How lucky and blessed we are to be his chosen people. Okay? So it really means a lot for a Gentile to hear that, more so than what? A Jew. And I think this also reminds us, because we might take this for granted, being born Christian, that, we feel like we're the chosen bunch, and we're just going to go to heaven just cause. Whereas people that weren't born into the church, they actually really, really appreciate the faith a lot more and appreciate being Christian a lot more, because they weren't born thinking they're Christian, they're it, they weren't the chosen people. So just don't take it for granted. It's you're a Christian. You're chosen by God. You're a chosen daughter and son of Christ. And Bish kind of mentioned this last week. St. Peter, he was described as a sort of a what kind of personality would you give St. Peter? Outspoken, yeah. Outspoken, yeah. Impulsive, yeah. Abrasive, even. he was full on, right? It wasn't like. Who would you consider maybe like a more gentle soul? St. John, yeah. So St. John is the more gentle, like in Christ's bosom. Like he's the way he speaks, little children, like he's lovely. St. Peter, you don't really, expect that kind of like gentleness and love. But we start today in our Bible study with verse 11, and I don't know if there's like a mic, or do I just have to read?
Oh,
yeah. Someone can just read verse 11 and 12. Verse 11 and 12.
Beloved, I beg you as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul, having your conduct honourable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. Okay. So St. Peter, not the gentle one, right, starts off by saying, beloved, I beg you, right? So this is like an outspoken guy. Like he commands, he does not beg, right? Like if he's convicted about something, he's like out there telling you what to do about it. So here he says, beloved, I beg you. I beg you. St. Peter, who is the oldest of the apostles at this stage, right? Probably considered the patriarch. Like just imagine like the Pope coming in. He goes, beloved, like my children, I beg you. I beg you. So this statement here, the upcoming after I beg you, big deal. Like I want you to put a couple of lines under it. Beloved, I beg you as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. Okay.
So what is he trying to tell us here? He's saying, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. And this is the focus, I think, in this chapter is, and Bish kind of mentioned it last week. It's about, so the first chapter we talked about our identity. Now it's the appropriate behavior to be a witness, to be a good witness in a pagan world. Right? So how are we going to do that? He's saying, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. You guys are pilgrims. This is, and this is a temporary world. If you remember, Bishoy said last week, it's a temporary world. This is how long our life is here. We've got eternity to look forward to. You guys are pilgrims. It's a temporary journey, and because of that, your witness, your short witness, has to be effective because you're only here for a short time. So how are we going to do that? You abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. Why? Because you're living among a people that hate you. You're not normal. They're looking at you, but you shouldn't look like you are like everyone else, right? You're living among a people that hate you, that are looking for anything to criticize you. So at that time, Christians, they were like not the most popular group. So anyone was looking for anything just to kill them. Like they're waiting for anything that they do to criticize them and kill them. How do people look at Christians today? You look at the media and they make fun of Christians. It's not like, they look at them and say, oh yeah, Christians, they're so so amazing, so holy, like we need to be like them. No, like they actually make fun of us actively. And that's because essentially, are we setting the right example? They probably see us fall and do the wrong thing and they say, well, that's what a Christian is, right? So you have to be very careful with your conduct because we're living among people that are waiting for us to make mistakes. But back to abstain from fleshly lust. What do you guys think of? What is fleshly lust? What do you think of when you think of fleshly lust? What do you think of fleshly lusts?
Sexual immorality.
Yeah, sexual immorality. That's usually what you think of when you think of fleshly lusts. But fleshly lust isn't just that. If you think about it, it's anything that flesh wants. So you know what? Gluttony. 50 days, oh my God, the amount of meals we have to compensate all the fasts that we do, it's hilarious. But that's feeding. It's feeding feeding your flesh. It's your focus on the flesh. So sexual immorality, gluttony, ease and luxury. The fact that, we just want to sleep all day or not really, I want to go shopping and I don't need X, Y, and Z, but I'm going to buy it because why not? That's what I want, that's what I like. I don't, people are over there needing my service, my help, my money, but oh well, I need it, so I come first. That's fleshly lusts. And I think we don't see any of that. We don't consider that as something that's wrong. Even jealousy, that's fleshly lust. The fact that I think I deserve better than that person, or I want to have the final word. So I'm going to keep going at this argument until I have the final word because I come first. That's fleshly lust. It's division in the church. It's division within your family. It's putting yourself first. That's fleshly lust. And so St. Peter says, abstain from that. Focus on your soul. Because when you focus on your soul, you don't actually put yourself first. You put others first. And I want you to remember that because this will be mentioned a couple of times throughout the chapter. Don't focus on yourself. It's not about you. You're here to witness. You're here for others. You're here to serve, like Christ did, right? So you should be holy, for I am holy. Be holy, for I am holy. Be like me. And Christ never ever put himself first, right? So when you look at fleshly lusts, I want you to really think about it as putting yourself first, putting your flesh first. And that's why the church teaches us to fast on small things like food and things like that. When you are able to fast from the small things like food, you can actually have self-control and abstain from other things. Abstain from, wanting to give yourself everything that you need, or what you want. So, some of you are going to be like, well, God's given us desires. Mary, so what? You're saying that God hasn't given us desires? No, God has given you desires. But they should be governed by the will and spirit of God. Not by what you want. Not what you feel like today, right? It's always going back to God and His will for you. But when you let go to the desires, when you let go to the passions that you have, they call it, as St. Peter says, a war. It becomes literally a war against your soul, because it doesn't just come once and then that's it. No, it comes until it attacks you to the core, right? You say, oh, but how? How do you think, lying or stealing? Who cares if you don't get caught? If I'm not physically harmed by it, who cares? The more you do something that is so small and you get away with it, it actually impacts your core without you even realizing it. You know the disease leprosy? It's a physical disease, right? It's a physical skin disease. And you think, so what? It can be treated or... No, it's so bad that the person who's got leprosy is so numb to it that they can't even feel when a piece of skin gets scratched, or the disease, the skin disease is so deep that they're numb to it. That's what happens when your spirit is numb to sin. It goes to the core. And we see this, for example, in Samson. Samson was strong. He could take an army down, right? He was just mighty. He could take a whole, room full of people single-handedly down, right? And all of a sudden, he lost his power because of his desires, right? But it's not like his appearance just suddenly this muscly guy just became a bony-ass person. He's still muscles, right? But his core, his ultimate core got destroyed. So he could no longer have this power. His physical muscles was there. He was a strong person still. But his desires killed him from the inside. And that's God telling us that don't think all this might, all this appearance, and you getting away with all these lusts, this fleshly lusts, is okay. Deep inside, your core is being hurt. You look after your inside. You look after your core, because that is what the war is against. Okay? So why should we fight? Because St. Peter says you're a sojourner, right? You're a stranger here, right? You shouldn't be like everyone else. You should stick out, right? I remember coming to Australia and fresh from New Zealand, and I stuck out, stuck out like a sore thumb. My accent, said it all. When you go to Egypt, for whoever's gone to Egypt, right, and you can try your best. You can have the best accent, Egyptian accent. You can practice your Arabic till your heart's desire. You can try and dress differently, but you stick out. Right from the get-go, when you go into a taxi and you put your seatbelt on, you stick out. You will never, be a true Egyptian. They can tell that you're not from there. Do you stick out in your workplace? at school, at uni, do you stick out? And you know, I ask this question all the time to myself, like, do I look odd to people? Or am I just like everyone else? So the aim is to look odd, by the way. You know, you might not want to, but we are sojourners, we're strangers here, okay? And if you guys ever, do you ever remember the 21 martyrs? Has anyone heard of the 21 martyrs of Libya? Yeah, so they were basically kidnapped by terrorists and beheaded. There were actually 20 Christians, 20 Egyptian Coptic Christians, but then all of a sudden the media came out, it's like 21. Who's that one person? Right, there's like 20 of them, who's the other 21, right? And it turns out that this other person's not even Christian, not even Coptic, like this random ass person who just went in with the crowd, got beheaded, like the poor guy. And you wonder and you ask, who is that person? Turns out this person believed by the conduct of these 20 martyrs. Because he saw the 20 Christians and their faith, he said, I want some of that. You know, like that looks different to me, like that looks amazing. I want to be part of that. Do you have that impact around the people that you see and work with and talk to? Do you have that kind of effect? This person who's never known Christ, doesn't even speak their language, so he doesn't even speak Arabic, like this guy just saw them and their faith and their love, and he got impacted. He was touched. And he died with them for Christ. So it just amazes me. It really does. And in many countries, you can't actually preach, you can't actually talk, you can't speak the word. You can only evangelize through your acts. So I'm not asking you to go tomorrow to work and be like, hey, like, let's read the Bible together. I'm talking about your actions. Do you stick out? Okay, so I think it's enough for those two verses. Can we read verses 13 to 17?
Therefore submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether to the king as supreme, or to governors, as to those who are sent by him, for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good he may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free, yet not using liberty as a cloak for vice, but as bondservants of God. Honour all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honour the king.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier, this is the time when Christians were being persecuted, they were getting killed left, right and centre. It was the time of King Nero. So if you think of crazy kings or crazy leaders, this one like tops it. Like he's crazy as, right? Like he was like using Christians as like little lampposts. Like he was just firing up the Christians and he was ruthless. Crazy. If you're thinking of like leaders of today that are a little bit crazy, I can't really say much because I'm recorded, but like, crazy leaders out there, right? This is not like, they're nothing. They're like cutie pies compared to this guy, right? And St. Peter is saying, submit to him. Submit to this crazy person who's out to kill you. Like, guys grasping how crazy this is? Like, I think really, I was telling someone earlier, I was really struggling with this chapter this whole week. Like, it's hard. It's really hard to submit sometimes to people that don't want you to be happy, peaceful, like, they want the worst for you. They want to kill you. Like, really hard to be submissive. And God is telling us as Christians to be submissive, to submit to authority, regardless of what they decide what they want, okay? Render what is Caesar's to what is Caesar's. Render what is Caesar's to what is Caesar's, right? And this reminds me of a story I read a long time ago in Egypt. If you guys know of Pope Cyril, so he was before Pope Shenouda. And at that time, he was visiting the newly appointed president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, right? And the president was, quite excited. He was really for civil, a civil nation, no religious, sects or anything like that. Pope Cyril's like, okay, whatever. So he goes and visits him, and goes in with his pepper, the stick that, I don't know what it's called. What is it? Staff. Thank you. Shepherd's staff. Yes. So he goes in with the staff, and Gamal Abdel Nasser is like, whoa, what's this guy coming to beat me up with the stuff? Who does he think he is, right? So he doesn't really give him time of day, and Pope Cyril's like, right, whatever. Walks out and says, I'm not going to come here anytime soon. This guy doesn't really respect me, and that's that, right? After a little while, Gamal's daughter gets really, really sick, right? And she and they go, oh, it's because you treated the Pope really badly. You need to get him here. He'll heal your daughter. So he goes and heals the daughter, and everyone's happy. And Gamal's like, oh, I'm really, really sorry. And the Pope is like, no worries, and kisses his heart. When they go, in the breast, so he kisses his heart, right? And Gamal's like, what, President Gamal's like, whoa, dude, I just hated your guts, we could go, why are you so kind to me? Why are you kissing my heart? That's lovely, why are you so nice? And he says, the heart of the king is in the hands of God. In Proverbs says, the heart of the king is in the hands of God. And so President Gamal is like, whoa, wow, amazing. This man of God is telling me, no pressure, that my heart is in the hands of God, right? And so whatever, this president intends on doing or intends on saying, whether he likes the Christians or not, Pope Cyril has submitted to the fact that this president, this man, his heart is in the hands of God. So whatever he does or says or rules over the people, this is from God. Huge. It's actually really, really big. And if you think about it, these days, lots of governments are making lots of decisions, and not all of them are exactly correct in the Christian terms, right? A lot of it is oh, I don't know. Some of that is really weird and wonderful, even down to the basic coronavirus, and every government's coming up with rules that are just whatever they think is right, and not every country is dealing with it the same way, and so you struggle. You're if you I don't know, if you're anything like me, I just want to understand the science behind any of the rules, and it's why? Why do I have to do that? Just explain to me. And I have to be very careful because I'm being recorded. I have to remember this. But you start wondering and questioning, and you really don't want to submit. You want to be convinced before you submit to this rule, this government rule. I don't understand. And God is simply saying, no, just do whatever the government says, because authority, I have given you this authority. So whatever they say is actually for me. St. Peter says, therefore submit yourselves to every ordinance of men for the Lord's sake. For my sake. In Arabic you say, Ashan khatri. Ashan khatr Rabbina. For the Lord's sake. Do it for me. Do it for me, please. So even if you don't agree with them, just do it for me, for the Lord's sake. So it's submitting for the Lord's sake. But then you say, right, but I've got civil rights. You know, like, does that mean I don't go against what a government, if the government's like really poorly managed and it's going against the people and it's really awful and it's not fair, and does that mean that I just sit at home and like say, oh well, God told me to submit? Like, oh, not my problem, like I'm just submitting, right? Is that what St. Peter is saying here? No, he's not saying that. He's saying practice your civil rights. Do what's right. Do what's best for people before yourself. So advocate on people's behalf. I'm not saying don't advocate, but do it within the law. Don't be like revolting and like killing people in the process just because you believe in something. Like, do it within the law. Practice your civil rights. Peacefully protest. Write to the minister. Like, you can do all of that. You can do every single thing as a citizen. Practice your rights. Try your best to get what you think is good and right for you and for the people, not for yourself only. And if all else fails and the government still is choosing to go that way, then you submit. Because that's God's will. It's hard, isn't it? You practice your right. You say, you know, I'm going to defend or advocate for so-and-so, for the people, for the country, for Christianity, for the church. I will do everything in my will and my power to advocate. But if the government or authority makes a decision, then know that God has done that for a reason. And then the next thing, what do? You say, what do you want me to do now, God? That's what God wants us to do. That's submission. It's not, oh well, I'm going to sit back and just, you know, bring out the popcorn, I'll just watch the world burn. That's not what you're called to do, right? Submission for the Lord's sake is, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do the best that I can to defend God's will and what's right, and defend that. But then at the end of the day, I will submit to whatever comes out of authority. And you know, we have examples of St. Paul when he defended his right in front of the governor and said, you know, explain to me, like, why are you judging me like this? It's not wrong to stand up for what's right. It's not wrong to use the law to practice what you think should be done or what's right. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free, not using liberty as a cloak for vice. So don't think that as Christians or as free Christians you think, oh, like, I've got the power. Because there are some religions, right, that think, no, like, we are right. And so therefore, everyone needs to submit to what we think. You know, like, we can easily say that Christians are right, everyone needs to die in the process to follow what we think is right. That's not what the teaching of the Bible is. It's submission with love. It's submission for God's sake. It's, yes, we're free. We are God's children. We're God's chosen people. We will advocate so that people can follow God and follow His will. But if at the end of the day, that's not what they choose to do, then that's that. And we submit to that. He says, honor all people. That's like everyone. You know, that annoying neighbor, that annoying boss, that annoying, person at service or at church or whatever, that annoying brother. Everyone, honor them. Honor all people. Love the brotherhood. So if we don't love our brother, what does that mean? So if we have a brother and we lose this brother because we don't love them, we're losing God as our Father. because we just lost our brother. We've chosen to be away from that family tree. So we've lost God in the process as our Father. So honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God. And here, fear, it means to dread bringing pain and sadness to God's heart. You know, I love my dad. I love him so much. The day that my dad looks at me and I don't feel like he's right, like he's not talking to me like he usually does, he's not chatty, he's not bubbly, he's not I get really worried that I did something wrong or I upset him. Do we have that same relationship with God? That we fear that he's sad because we did something, that we've saddened his heart. That's the kind of fear we're talking about. Fear God and honor the King. So here, submission to authority is submission for the Lord's sake. That's the type of submission St. Peter is calling us to do. Submission for the Lord's sake. Okay, it doesn't stop here. There's more submission to come. Okay, so does anyone want to read verses 18 to 24? 18 to 24.
Servants, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the harsh, for this is commendable. If because of conscience towards God one endures grief, suffering wrongfully. For what credit is it if when you are beaten for your faults you take it patiently? But when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God. For to this you were called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example what you should follow his steps, who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth, who when he was reviled did not revile in return, when he suffered he did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously, who himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, having died to sins, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed.
Thank you. Okay, so here we talk about, so we've gone from submission to authority to submission to our boss, right? Lovely bosses at work, or like masters when it comes to sort of like, I'm thinking uni lecturers, like you submit to anyone who's got authority over you on a daily basis, right? Submission to masters. So it says, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only the good and gentle, but also the harsh. Man, I have gone through so many bosses, right? I have to, again, be careful with the recording. So, really great bosses, easy to submit to. Oh my God, like, you want to be like jumping hoops over for them. Like, seriously, they deserve everything and more. So, easy to submit to them. You want to do that? Sure, happy to do that, no problem. It's the ones that are really difficult, like the ones that you're just thinking, oh my God, I'm not sure how you got that job, like, okay. Like the ones that are really, like you think, oh my God, what makes you think this is a great idea? Like, why do you want me to do that? Or the ones that really want to make your life a living hell, like, you know, they micromanage, or they want to make your life really as uneasy as possible. Submit to those, St. Peter says. The ones that make absolutely no sense. I work in an area where I get told by like people up there, like lots and lots of people up there that I don't even know of, to do things and do it quickly with like no explanation, and no genuine idea of how it might impact people. Like, you just have to do it, and then oh well, like there's problems and consequences. Oh well, just deal with it. Like sometimes you get told to do things and you're like, I don't know if people thought this through. Like, did anyone think A, B, C will lead to X, Y, and Z? No one really thought this through. And you think, oh, like I have one of two options, like not do it and get fired, or do it and just run with it.
And a lot of the times, it's hard to submit. And, a lot of people who think, I cannot work for someone, I need to work for myself. Those are the people that can't submit. Like, it's really challenging for them to submit. What they don't realize is that they still have to submit to the government. Like, they have to submit to someone. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, here St. Peter is saying, don't submit out of obligation. That's easy. Submit out of love. That's the hard part, right? So he says, for what credit is it if when you are beaten for your faults, you take it patiently, but when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God. So in the Bible, Christians were usually asked by Romans to carry things for them. They were like slaves, right? At that time, all Christians were slaves. And so if a Roman wanted a Christian to carry their stuff, for 1 mile, they would just do that, and no questions asked, because they're slaves, right? So Christ actually said, no, don't even just go 1 mile, go 2 miles with them. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that I don't actually just want you to do what you're obligated to do as a servant. I want you to do that extra mile out of love. That's the kind of submission St. Peter is talking about. Christianity doesn't mean you're entitled or royal, like I said. You know how we said chosen people? Unfortunately, that's not the kind of chosen that you're thinking of. It's the chosen people of Christ that are so different that we just pour out love. That we do things not just because we have to or getting paid to do it, but because we love the person in front of us and truly believe that God's will is spoken through them. So we go 2 miles with them. How am I going for time? Can I just ask? Okay. All right, good. So, whose stripes you are healed. So God uses him as an example. So St. Peter uses Christ as the example. That you think this is hard, but Christ did this. Christ was beaten for you. His stripes healed you. So don't you think that you can do the same? That your stripes at work or by your master can actually heal others around you? Do you not know that Christ, through you and through your work, can do wonders? Do you not have that faith? So here St. Peter is saying, who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth. So do you think you're better than him? Do you think that you commit no sin, you are perfect, and your boss is the one that's not perfect? Are you the one who's just amazing, and therefore everyone should listen to what you think is right? Christ, who is perfect in every single way or form, who committed no sin, no deceit was found in his mouth, he was submissive to death for you because he loves you. So he's saying, do the same, be like him. That's the kind of submission St. Peter is talking about. Submission, not for obligation, not out of obligation, but out of love. Okay? So can we just read verse 25? So we'll just read verse 25 to end this chapter.
For you are like sheep going astray, but now have returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls.
Okay. So because of in Judea is very hilly and lots of cliffs. So when shepherds used to walk in hills and cliffs, right, they used to keep a really, really close eye. So here he's describing us like those little sheep that are going across the cliffs and across the hills. You are like sheep going astray. So you need to be quite close to your shepherd, quite close to your overseer.
so that you don't get suddenly attacked by the war that we talked about for the lustful, fleshly lusts. Okay, so he says, "For you are like sheep going astray, but have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls." St. Peter ends this chapter saying, look, you need to really follow through with submitting to all authorities. But if you can't do that, keep close to your shepherd, keep close to your overseer, because he won't let you lose your identity. He won't let you lose your dignity. Be faithful to him, and he will keep your Christian identity. Okay? So always remember that Christ is your shepherd, he is your overseer. And don't worry, for he will look after your identity. So I thought we would carry on to submission to husbands, because with the theme of submission. So, and like I said, it's been a hard week for me. Like I've been like, whoa, trying to really tackle with this chapter, submitting to the government, submitting to masters, and I've been like, it's been quite a rough week at work. So trying and submit to the work that's given to me, or the bosses, or like even the weird and wonderful rules from the government every 2 seconds. Like it's been interesting, and so this chapter has come at a really good time, because it's reminded me that me as a Christian, I need to submit to this. But then comes submission to husbands, right? And it's quite interesting that the submission to husbands is about 6 times larger than the commandment that goes to the guys. But I think it is quite worthwhile reading that today, and we'll finish there. So if someone can read verses 1 to 6 in chapter 3.
Wives, likewise be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they, without a word, may be won by the conduct of their wives. When they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear, do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on fine apparel. Rather, let it be let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. For in this manner, in the former times, the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are, if you do good and are not afraid with any terror.
Okay, so wives likewise, like who? Who's he saying likewise? Like, who's he comparing wives to? Likewise. To who? Who did we just talk about?
Masters.
Sorry?
Masters.
Yeah, so masters, but like who is he likening the submission to? So he's saying, wives, likewise, submit. Submit like who? Christ. Right? So we're still comparing our identity, our Christian identity is likened to, because we're children of Christ. So if you go astray, you can't go wrong by comparing yourself to Christ. So wives, we're not asking anything like crazy. We're asking you to be submissive like Christ, to be loving, to have the same love as Christ. So in Jewish society, women were like, equivalent to the sheep or goat of a man. Like, they were a possession back then, okay? They were quite down, quite low in the pecking order. And so imagine if a possession, one's possession, decides to be, hey, I'm going to be Christian today. What do you think the reaction of the man will be? I'm done with you. I'm going to divorce you. Like, Christian? What do you mean? Time of Nero?
King Nero, like that, we're gonna die. Like you wanna be Christian, good for you. Like out the door, right? That's the kind of times they were living in when St. Peter wrote this. And so he was saying, I don't want you to go to your husbands and say, right, let's open the Bible and I'm going to convince you by the word that this is right, because you're going to get divorced. So he's saying, maybe that even if some do not obey the word, they without a word may be won by the conduct of their wives. So here he's saying, submit not by your words, but by your conduct. Okay? And a lot of the times, wives, girls, like we're just gonna go out there and be like, look, okay, I'm trying to prove a point to you, listen to me because I'm right. And you want to prove that point. And so St. Peter is saying that's not really the best way to go about it. That's not the best Christian way to go about it. You want to prove a point? Prove it by your actions. Prove it by your actions. Don't argue and say, oh, like this is what's right because the Bible said so. Even if he doesn't understand the Bible, whatever you say, you need to actually practice it so that he can see the benefits, the true fruits of what a Christ-like identity would be like, would feel like. There was a story of a married couple, who go to a counselor and say, oh look, the wife is like, Abuna, oh my God, my husband, the day I correct him, it's like the end of the world, right? He doesn't like me to correct him, hurts his ego, like even though I'm right, like it's clear as mud, I'm right? So, I don't know how to go about this. So Abuna goes, your goal is not to actually correct your husband, yeah. Your goal is to mirror to him what he should be, right? And I think in any sort of marriage or relationship, I think sometimes it's hard to actually take a step back and say, right, I need to actually mirror Christ to this person, wife or husband. I need to mirror this. I don't just preach and talk to the person and say, this is why I think I'm right. And that's the hard bit. It's not an easy way to get your marriage closer to God. It's to mirror something. It's to mirror the behavior. Right, so he commands the wife to be submissive, and here submissive is compared. There's different things that he says. So first, she needs to be submissive, and this is the kind of voluntary selflessness, not because we're less than men, but this is like voluntary because we love our husbands so much. It's out of love, the same kind of love that Christ had to us. And this same love, this same submission, this same selflessness is actually a sign of strength. It's not weakness. God, when he submitted to death, that's not an easy thing for him to do. There was easier ways that he could have gone about salvation, but he chose this out of love. The second thing that St. Peter commands is women to observe chaste conduct. And here, like when I read more about what that means, because it sounds a bit full on, it actually means, in lay person's term, don't be like complicated. Don't make a big deal out of everything, Assume the best out of the person in front of you. Forgive. Don't make matters more than they deserve. Like, don't give matters more time than they deserve. Be forgiving, be simple-hearted, and assume the best. He commands also, accompanied by fear or reverence, right? So when they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear. Fear of what?
It's fear of God's presence in your life. Like I said before, it's fear of God's love, that you don't want God to be upset. You don't want to upset his heart. Like you fear that his presence is with you. You have this reverence about you. And then the final thing he was talking about is the outer appearance. Because back then, women didn't have a job, or they didn't have many rights to do anything, had a lot of free time, and so they occupied themselves with outward appearance. That's what they did all day, every day, right? He's saying, he's not saying let yourself go, but he's saying don't make your focus all about that. Focus on your inner appearance. Focus on the heart before your outward appearance. What he says here is, rather let it be the hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible beauty. Because the outward beauty, it will fade away as you age. That will go. It's the inside, it's the incorruptible beauty. The gentle, quiet spirit. Okay? So that's what you need to focus on. So he says, be submissive, so the voluntary selflessness. Have chaste conduct. Be simple, forgive, assume the best. Accompanied by fear of God's presence in your life. Fear of God's love. And also focus on your inward before your outward appearance. And then he goes, for in this manner, being submissive to the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And we say this in the marriage ceremony, and we're like, yes, Elam, I'm gonna call my husband Lord, as if, like, who in their right mind does that in these days? I always get reminded by my confession father, who used to always tell me, Lord is a loving term. It's like saying Habibi, like it's my love. You love someone so much so that you want to call them out of respect, out of adornment, like you adore them so much that you say, my Lord, my love. That's the kind of term that St. Peter is saying here. So he's saying, work on the inner love. Be irresistible, not from the outward appearance. You know, when you think of married couples, they're always like on diets and stuff. They want to look the best in the wedding and like photos, and they want to look nice and fit and like beautiful, right? He's saying, focus on the inner appearance as much as your outer appearance. Be so irresistible from the inside that you're like telling your husband Lord. You know, like you're so irresistible, like you're so cute. Like you're saying, oh, like Habibi, my love, like my Lord, like that's what you need to be thinking of. Being irresistible from the inside, not just from the outside. Okay. And I just want to always, I think I've been scarred because a few years ago I did the same talk, and I went really hard about, wives submit to your husbands and stuff. And I just want to like put a disclaimer, like I'm not talking about like submitting to death, like, because I remember one of the girls who was in a relationship, she was saying, you said submit, and my boyfriend told me to let go of all my friendships and let go of all my services because he wants all of my time, and I submitted. No, like if you're in a relationship like this, like please seek professional help, like seek premarital counseling, like God here is saying submit to your husband when you are one, not submit to your boyfriend, like not submit to your fiance. If you're in a bad relationship, Like God is not telling you to submit to that. You need to seek help, seek professional help. What I'm saying is submit to Christ. You and your husband are one in Christ. So try and remember that. You're submitting to Christ when you submit to your husband, okay? And you submit out of love. Okay. So I just wanted to summarize, because there's a lot of submission in this chapter. So we said, submit to the authorities, submit to government, for the Lord's sake. So this is one type of submission. So submit for the Lord's sake. Submission to masters, not out of obligation, but out of love. Okay, so one is submit for the Lord's sake. The second is submit out of love, not out of obligation. And the last is submit by conduct, not by word. Be the mirror to your husband of Christ's image. So, again, submit for the Lord's sake, submit not out of obligation, but because of love, and submit by conduct and not by words. And glory be to God forever. Amen.
Does anyone have any questions about it? Or something nice to share? Or
I have a question. I don't really understand the very last verse, verse 6. The second part of it. Oh, sorry. Verse 6, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are if you do good and are not afraid with any terror. What does that last part mean?
Does anyone want to sort of answer?
you say it again?
See the verse?
Yeah.
So verse 6, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are if you do good and are not afraid with any terror.
We actually discussed this in the car on the way here.
Oh God.
And we didn't come up with an answer, so maybe Abuna could...
I think as Sarah, because as Abraham is the father of, or the patriarch of all of the believers, I think Sarah is supposed to be the mother of the believers. So I think we are her children. So we're supposed to be like her, I think. As Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are if you are good and are not afraid with any terror. Last part, I'm not sure. The last sentence, I'm not sure. But as an expression of Sarah, she is a mother. She is a mother of the believers. That's my opinion, Mash. What do you guys think?
It's almost as if it's saying, like, if you're not afraid of any terrorism, don't be afraid of submitting. If that does, I'm not sure if that makes sense.
I think somebody needs to read something about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Is his father Tadros, is he explaining anything about?
No. There wasn't anything detailed about
There's
that.
other explanation. I'll search about it and I'll come back to you next week.
There's the story of have you guys heard the story of, I was talking to Chris Evans about it, was Abdel Sayed, or the mother of the poor. She has a movie on YouTube. Have you seen it? It's very nice. Yeah, again, we have to, by the way, what I'm saying, I just want to say a nice story. But we have to, again, look back into the commentaries and see what the church fathers say. But there's a story of the mother of the poor, where she She was a woman in Upper Egypt, a Said. Alright, this was a while ago.